Hey guys, welcome back to my garage. Today it is absolutely beautiful outside, so I decided to get an early start because we have a very busy day. So back there on the workbench I've got brake pads, brake rotors, paint to repaint the calipers, and if we get all that done today, then I'm going to tackle some of the clutch master cylinder, the slave, and the clutch line. The first thing I'm going to need to start with is getting these calipers off, which shouldn't be too big of a deal, but if I run into one that is a little bit stuck, I'll go ahead and hit some PV blaster on the bolts. I'm also going to do a complete flush of the entire hydraulic system, so we'll bleed all the brakes, and then when we do the clutch, we'll also bleed the clutch. I've got a few tricks to make that a little bit easier while I'm out here doing this by myself, but to get started, we need to get these calipers off. There are two 17mm bolts, one at the top and bottom, to get the caliper off. But for me, I'm actually going to go ahead and release these retainer clips that are holding on the brake line. And when I had looked at these before, they were really cruddy and dirty, and I thought, well, they were going to be pretty warm. But I actually cleaned them off just now, and somebody has already replaced these. These are some sort of steel, stainless steel braided line. There's actually manufacturer on the label here, but it's Weta Sport, I don't know. But anyway, I went ahead and purchased some new ones from Saki Bomb Garage, so I'm going to go ahead and replace these anyway, just because I don't know how old they are. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get these retainer clips pulled off. There's basically one here that looks just like the one that we've got right here, and basically you just want to pull this out. So I've got a couple tools, screwdrivers and pliers, to see about if I can pry this clip off. But I'll get this one and the one back here to release these brake lines. So everything is extremely rusty. It wouldn't even come off of my impact. So I've gone around and sprayed everything with PV blaster. I'm gonna let that soak for a little while and see if that helps. But I may go ahead and try maybe some of the rears, because the rears don't look as rusty, but they're really stuck on there. I mean, I'm basically moving the entire car when I try to twist these off. Yeah, I'm hoping the PV blaster can get in there and help me loosen it up a little bit. So I'm gonna let that soak, and then I'll bring you guys back when I make some progress. All right, so I walked around and I was able to crack the other three corners without any issue at all. Of course, this one, the one I started on, is the one that's being a pain. But after giving it maximum effort, I was able to finally crack the two bolts in the back. So now we can continue with getting this caliper off. So now that I've got the bolts off, I did temporarily put the top one back in just to hold it, but I'm gonna go ahead and take the brake line off from here and just bring this off with the caliper. I'm gonna go ahead and replace the brake lines anyway, so at least that's just one disconnect right there, and I'll be able to take the flexible line with the caliper. When we take this off, it'll probably be a slow drip. It won't be, dump all the fluid out at once, but just to make sure that we don't lose any, I've basically found some loose wire that I had, and basically I cut the end at an angle, and once I get this off, I'll be able to just stick that in there, and that should stem most of the bleeding. I did check the reservoir up top. We're actually about midway between min and max, so I'm gonna keep my eye on that, and if it starts looking like it's gonna get down to the min line, I'll go ahead and top off the brake reservoir. But for now, I think this is a 10mm bolt, so I'm gonna get that and start taking this loose, and then, like I said, as soon as it starts dripping, I'll jam that wire into the hose to stop the dripping. So now we're back here at the rear brakes, and some of it'll be easier and some will be a little bit more difficult. So we don't have the retainer screws on the rotor like we did on the front, so that'll be one less thing to worry about back here. We do have the e-brake that we do need to disconnect to get the caliper off, so I'm going to see if I can just get the wire or the cable out over this lever and disconnect it and then bring all this off. It is all quite rusty and dirty, so I'd like to go ahead and clean some of this up, and eventually we'll probably have to get some new parts, but for now everything seems to be working and doesn't look too bad. So I'm going to go ahead and take all this off. There are two 17 mil bolts, again, one on the top, one on the bottom. I will go ahead and disconnect the brake line up here from the frame back there, just same clip like it had on the front. So I'll go ahead and get that pulled out. And then the bottom is just a banjo bolt, which for now I'll just leave attached to the caliper and just take the brake line and the caliper off as one. I did find that when I put the wire in to stop the leaking of the brake line, I did put a latex glove around it, and that actually made the seal a little bit tighter and actually stopped almost all the dripping. So I'll do that on this one. So I'll go ahead and get these clips off, and then I'll go ahead and disconnect the brake line back here first, and then take these two bolts out, and then all that should come off as one piece. So if you were doing just a brake pad change, you basically you could stop before even taking off the e-brake assembly. But where I'm going to try to get all this stuff cleaned up and repainted, I need to go ahead and get this bracket off as well. The brake pads actually back here look much better than they did on the front. These are actually seem like they were replaced not too long ago. Anyway, so you could just replace your brake pads and then reassemble the caliper just with the two 17 mil bolts. But to get this guy off, there are two 14 mil bolts, one top, one bottom, and I'm gonna go ahead and get those off so I can get this bracket off. So the rear rotor came off pretty easy, just used a rubber mallet and kind of was able to tap it off. So I've been letting this soak in PB Blaster for a couple of hours now, so I'm hoping that we can go ahead and try to back these out. I do have my impact driver to see if we can start there, but like I said, I've seen several videos of people doing brakes, some for FDs, and it seems like inevitably everybody ends up having to drill them out because they're so rusted on there. So let's see if we can get these out. Well, that's a no-go. I don't know if you can see that, but it actually twisted my entire drill bit. So unfortunately, we're probably gonna have to, I'll try another drill bit just to see if maybe, I can get at least one of these out. Well, I bent another bit, and I know these aren't impact bits, but I don't have a set of impact bits. So unfortunately, it does look like we're gonna have to join the club and go ahead and drill these out. So as you saw, they weren't that difficult to drill out, and I think the part of the problem is that screw is really soft metal of some kind, and you know, a little bit of rust that jams it inside the the hub assembly, and then you know, it's a Phillips head and it just strips out. So you know, luckily it's easy to drill, and you know, we'll be okay without putting those back in there. Maybe eventually I'll see about punching those out, or maybe getting a smaller diameter drill bit and drilling all the way through to where we can just kind of crimp those, crimp that metal and then just pull those out. So for now, I'm just gonna leave them like they are. I don't think it'll cause any issues with the new rotors, but essentially that completes one side of the car, at least getting all the calipers off and the brake lines off. I need to get over to the other side and redo the entire process. I won't show you any of that. Basically, once I get all the calipers off, we'll get them cleaned up, and then we'll get them ready to paint. So I'd taken a small break to run to the auto parts store and get some dinner, and I know you guys are asking yourselves, Matt, why is this taking so long? And the answer is rust. There is rust everywhere. So I didn't have too much trouble getting the main bolts out of each of the calipers on all four corners, except for that first one that we definitely had some trouble getting out. But I got all the bolts out, but a lot of where the hard brake line meets up with the flex line, those connections were just terrible. I can't even recognize the connection that's up here on the passenger's front. So you know, it's unfortunate, because you know, maybe eventually we'll have to replace those hard lines, just because they're really bad rusty. So unfortunately, it did take me a while to get all those parts off. But that being said, I mean, the front calipers are really not that bad. They're definitely going to need some thorough cleaning. The rears are quite a bit more rusty. Actually, really everything in the back of the car was quite a bit more rust. And like I said, somebody at some point in time has put on a nicer aftermarket brake line and pads, but I have no idea when that was done. And you know, the wear patterns on the front pads are the same for both the driver and passenger side, where the inside pad is completely gone. I mean, it's pretty much down to the metal. And then, you know, maybe there's 50% of the exterior pad. So there's got to be some issues with the pads not self-centering, or maybe the pistons on the exterior side are not engaging properly. So when I clean these up, I'll have to check and see if that is going to be a problem. But unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get as much done tonight as I'd hoped, just because it took so freaking long to get all these rusty parts off. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start cleaning these so that I can get them ready to start, you know, prep them for paint. I'm going to call my Mazda dealership first thing in the morning and see if I can get some replacement parts, because these aren't horrible, but now seeing how I've already got them off the car, I prefer to definitely get them replaced. I definitely want to get all new retainer clips where, you know, hold the flex line and the hard line together, because a lot of those are severely rusted. So you know, it's a bit of bad news, but you know, I didn't know how bad things were going to be until we started taking things apart. So there is quite a bit more rust under the back of the car than I had thought there was going to be. Even on the body and some of the subframe, it's got a little more rust than I'd like, but we'll deal with that. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to get a wire brush and some other tools, and I'm going to start getting these cleaned. And then you know, if I get the front calipers cleaned up, I may go ahead and try to get the primer coat on them tonight. So I have the driver's side, which is the right side, you know, rear brake caliper and bracket, and the front caliper. There's a few parts on here that I want to go ahead and take off before we paint, because they look like they're going to be softer metals, and I don't want to damage those, and I don't have replacement parts for that. So there's a few little brackets on here that need to come off on the rear brake, and then really on the front brake, I just need to get the pads out, which I don't know if you can see in the camera the difference between the inside pad and the outside pad. And like I said, the passenger side was almost identical, so I need to see what's going on with that. But because I'm replacing the brake lines, I am going to go ahead and keep the existing brake lines on, just so that it's just easier for me right now than trying to take all this off and seal these holes up and things. So because I'm going to probably throw these in the trash, I'm going to leave it like this. The banjo bolt will get some paint on it, but that'll all get removed when I replace with the new brake line. So you know, I also have some new bleeders. So the bleeders that I have on these existing calipers will stay. And again, if they get paint on them, I'm just going to be removing them anyway. So the bleeders will stay as is, the brake lines will stay as is, and then I need to get these little miscellaneous little brackets and things removed off of the calipers. So the brake bracket actually has, of course mine are quite rusty, but essentially there's one right here, and then there's these smaller ones that are basically what the brake pads, ride in. So if I can carefully remove these without damaging them, I will go ahead and do that, and then I'll clean these up separate from the bracket itself. I'll spray all this stuff down with brake cleaner, but when we go to paint, when I go to clean this, I'll protect all these rubber pieces. I would try to remove them, but given that they're pretty old, I don't want to risk damaging them, so I'll end up just taping these off. But yeah, so that's the bracket. The actual main caliper itself, again, I'll try to protect as much of this as I can with tape, but all this just needs to get cleaned. And then the front brake caliper, I need to get these pads out. To get the pads out of the front caliper, you have all these wires that you have to basically fish out of various parts in order to pull the pads out. So we're going to start by removing, this would basically be the back of the caliper when it's installed in the car. So we'll just remove that when mine's actually broken. So I'll have to maybe see about getting a new one at some point in time. But now that we have that out, we should be able to push these pins out. And they're not threaded, but I'm hoping that twisting them will help knock some of the crud off. Well guys, I hate ending videos without resolution, and unfortunately I think tonight, or for this week, this is probably going to be the end of the video. I don't want to rush my work just for the sake of having a video this week or next week or anytime. So after trying to clean at least one front and one rear caliper and kind of really assessing what condition those parts are in, I think what's going to be best for this project is to go ahead and look and see at what I can get in regards to new calipers. If this is a car I'm going to keep for a long time, I want to make sure, I want to do it once and I don't want to have to do it again. Is it time to go ahead and go to a big brake kit? I don't know. My understanding is that the rear brakes for this car are kind of unique, and a lot of companies don't go through the effort of making a big brake kit for this car. So you probably have to go through a lot of conversions and a lot of custom work to get rear brakes, high performance rear brake calipers and kits. And some of you guys may correct me on that, but that is my understanding, that you pretty much, you can get big brake kits for the front of the car aftermarket really easily, but for the back you're kind of stuck with using the factory brakes. So I definitely want to see if my Mazda dealership, local Mazda dealership, has at least some OEM rear brakes, and then I'll have to do some research on the internet and see what I want to do for the front brakes. It is unfortunate, but that's just the way working on cars goes sometimes. You're just not going to know what you're going to find until you really get into it. What was dust versus what was rust was very difficult to tell while everything was on the car. I do have all the brake lines fairly secure, so I don't think we're going to bleed out all the fluid overnight. And to be honest, I'm not sure I'll even be back out here tomorrow. It just depends on what I can find in regards to parts. If the local dealership has everything I'm looking for, I may just go ahead and buy that if it's not extremely expensive over what I can find on the internet. If the internet has better pricing, then I may just have to order online and just wait for things to be shipped. So again, I apologize for leaving videos without resolution, but trust me, I'm working on it, and I want to do right by you guys and make sure that we're doing everything the right way on this car. Yeah, I hope you at least learned something about taking the brakes off this car. And a lot of this stuff will apply to any car, regardless if it's a RX-7 FD or not. And if you're not doing in a complete brake kit, this is definitely something you can do in a few hours in your garage. But I'm wanting to disassemble the whole system and flush the whole system and replace the lines, replace the brakes, and potentially replace the calipers. So anyway, I think it's been a long enough day that I just need to take a step back and figure out what's going to be best for the project. So, I do have all the parts sitting over there still, and so we'll continue to make content, but at least with regards to this project, I'm going to have to put it on hold at least until I can find the right parts and make the smart decisions about this. If you did like this content, please consider subscribing and like this video. And like I said, we're going to keep moving forward no matter what gets in our way. But unfortunately, this is just the way things go sometimes, and this is real life. So thank you guys for watching, and as soon as I can get back out here and get some more progress done, I'll definitely get out another video. So hopefully it won't be a week. Maybe I can get something out before next week. But anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you guys so much for your support and your comments and everything you do for me. It does motivate me to get out here every day and make more videos and try to find cool parts and cool things to do. So anyway, thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys next time.